The story begins with a man waking up in complete darkness, confused and unsure where he is or why he cannot move, until a faint glow slowly appears ahead of him and grows bright enough to reveal it is light coming through a small crack in an eggshell surrounding him, through which he sees a forest outside. The sight only raises more questions, and before he can think further, a status screen appears in front of him, and he freezes when it states that he is a dragon egg, a claim so absurd that his mind refuses to accept it. The window expands, and a divine voice explains that it displays his abilities with numerical values. He immediately demands an explanation, but the voice answers calmly that it cannot explain anything yet, because he is still level 1. Acting without thinking, he shakes his body, loses his balance, and falls from the tree he is resting in, hitting the ground and rolling helplessly downhill until he finally stops at a river. When he looks into the water, his reflection removes all doubt, showing him the smooth shape of a dragon egg, and his shock leaves him unable to deny the truth any longer. Seeing how lost he is, the divine voice finally explains his situation, telling him that he is indeed a dragon egg, classified in this world as an F-rank monster. It warns that if his shell breaks completely, he will die instantly, meaning even the small hole he made to see outside is already dangerous. The voice continues by explaining that dragon eggs sit at the bottom of the food chain, yet they hold the potential to grow into powerful dragons if they survive long enough to hatch. Survival is rare, however, because dragon eggs are a favored food among monsters, and without legs, rolling is their only way to move. Even after hearing all this, he still struggles to accept what he has become, but he knows staying still is too risky, so he begins rolling away as fast as he can in search of safety. He rolls off a small cliff, and the system announces that his fall resistance increases from level 1 to level 2, though the impact still lowers his HP and reminds him how fragile he is. Injured and worn out, he chooses to sleep, and when he wakes to find his HP fully restored, he understands that rest completely refills his health. He continues rolling through the forest while wondering what will happen when he finally hatches, and whether his future holds endless fighting just to stay alive. Just then he notices a large insect nearby, and sensing danger, he hides behind a tree and uses his appraisal skill, which identifies the creature as an egg-eater. The moment the insect notices him, it charges with clear intent to kill, and he rolls away as fast as he can, already knowing that he cannot escape forever by speed alone. The creature chases him relentlessly to the edge of a cliff, and when it leaps forward to swallow him, he dodges at the last moment, slamming into it with all his strength and knocking it off the cliff. The monster tumbles down the slope and dies on impact, marking the first battle he ever wins, and the system immediately announces that he has gained 12 experience points and has reached level 5, fully restoring and maximizing his stats while unlocking the conditions for evolution. 2 choices appear before him: Baby Dragon and Little Dragon, and when he hesitates, the system explains the difference, describing the Little Dragon as a dwarf breed that grows larger than a bear and is known for strong fire breath, while the Baby Dragon lacks combat strength early on but holds vast potential to evolve into many different dragon types. The system also notes that baby dragons are highly sought after by both monsters and adventurers, making them constant targets, which initially leads him to choose the Little Dragon as the safer path. The moment he makes that decision, the divine voice intervenes, urging him not to limit himself and reminding him that greater heights demand greater risks. He begins to reconsider, recalling that the baby dragon's strength lies in its future possibilities, and he starts to suspect that the Little Dragon may have strict limits on how far it can evolve. The thought of choosing safety over growth troubles him, and he decides that living with danger is better than living with regret, even if the path ahead becomes harder. He changes his choice, selecting the baby dragon, and the system accepts his decision without hesitation, and his body immediately begins to change, his form reshaping as he evolves into a yellow baby dragon. And with the transformation comes a surge of new skills, along with major increases to his existing stats. Despite the evolution, his HP and MP remain low, leaving him drained and unable to move much, making it clear that rest is necessary before he can take another step forward in this new form. Soon, he starts feeling hungry, and his stomach growls loudly enough to make it clear that he needs food. He looks at the worm he defeated earlier and realizes that it no longer seems disgusting, and as he understands that growing stronger requires proper nourishment, his dragon instincts take over and push aside any remaining hesitation. He devours the worm and then lies down to rest, and when he wakes later, his body feels refreshed and full of energy. He moves to the river and looks at his reflection, fully accepting that he has been reincarnated into this world, even though he finds it strange that he has no memories of his past life and cannot remember who he once was or what kind of person he used to be. Just then, he notices several dark worms nearby, and instead of running, he charges straight at them, using his new skills to defeat the first group quickly. As he continues fighting, he unlocks more abilities, making each battle smoother and faster, and once the area is clear, hunger returns. Remembering how awful the dark worms taste, he avoids eating them and tries nearby mushrooms instead, only to discover too late that they are poisonous, a mistake that teaches him never to eat random plants again. With that lesson learned, he moves deeper into the forest in search of better prey and soon encounters a gray wolf, which is larger than him, but still falls to his baby breath and dragon punch. The flames lightly scorch the wolf, and the smell reminds him of cooked meat, leading him to roast it further before taking a bite and realizing how good it tastes. He soon defeats another gray wolf just as easily, and this pushes him to level 20 out of 25, making it clear that he needs 5 more levels before he can evolve again. As he eats, he notices that hunting, fighting, and feeding like this no longer feel unnatural, and living as a dragon is slowly becoming normal. Even so, having only the divine voice for company begins to feel lonely, and he finds himself wishing for a companion. Not long after, unfamiliar voices echo through the forest, and although he cannot understand the language, he recognizes them as human and feels a sense of comfort. He hides behind a tree and watches a small group of adventurers approach, briefly considering showing himself, believing that his small size and harmless appearance might keep them from attacking, and even imagining that they might treat him like a pet. Acting on that hope, he steps out and tries to appear non-threatening, but the adventurers see him only as prey, and their leader slashes him across the chest without hesitation. Right after, the man uses magic and numbs his body, leaving him unable to move. Helpless, he lies there and watches the adventurers close in. Their intent is clear. They are going to kill him. He understands too late how foolish it is to believe a dragon could ever coexist with humans. All the struggle to survive and evolve now seems meaningless. But just as the leader raises his weapon to deliver the final blow, a female adventurer steps forward and stops him, arguing that there is no need to kill something so small and harmless. Confused by the sudden turn, he feels warmth spread through his body and realizes she is healing him. And when he uses appraisal, he learns her name is Mriia. He notes that she spends what little MP she has to save him. And as she speaks, the system grants him the Greek language skill, allowing him to begin understanding human speech. But the fragile calm breaks when screams echo through the forest ahead. Mriia instantly recognizes the voices as her companions and moves to run toward them, and he reaches out to stop her, desperately warning through gestures that what lies ahead is too dangerous to face alone. She pulls away and runs regardless, leaving him behind, and he cannot ignore the thought that the one who saved his life is now in danger because of him. He forces his body to move as he follows her, but when he arrives, he gets frightened to see the monster they are fighting, a C-rank rock dragon with immense endurance, far beyond anything he has faced before. Mriia is already injured, and when he calls out to her, the rock dragon shifts its attention to him, but he is just frozen in place, wondering if this is where his struggle finally ends. The baby dragon narrowly dodges an attack and hides behind nearby bushes, knowing that if the rock dragon reaches him in his current state, death is certain. And as he looks back, he sees that Mriia is still alive, but has been noticed by the monster, which begins moving toward her. The divine voice urges him to run and survive, warning him that he has no skills or strength capable of defeating the rock dragon, and he understands the truth of those words as he faces the sheer size of the creature. Yet the memory of how Mriia saved him without hesitation drives him forward instead of away. He rolls straight toward the rock dragon before it can reach her, weaving through its attacks with his rolling skill, and the system grants him the title King of Evasion as he narrowly avoids death again. While forcing himself to stay focused, he notices that one of Mriia's companions lies dead, while the other is still alive but unconscious and bleeding, clinging to life with only a few hit points remaining. The rock dragon attacks again, and knowing he cannot win by force, he uses his movement to draw its attention away, planning to lead it elsewhere and return for the survivors. But the creature unleashes a long-range tremor that strikes him without warning and leaves him with even fewer options. When the rock dragon follows with a bite attack, he counters with fire punch, dealing some damage, only to watch the monster recover almost instantly, making it clear that this fight cannot be won. Accepting his limits, he chooses to save Mriia, lifting her and fleeing while the rock dragon attacks again, its massive body slowing it just enough to give him the chance to escape. Once he puts enough distance between them, he stops briefly to check her condition and notices her HP continuing to drop from blood loss. And although he considers healing magic, he decides that reaching safety matters more. Remembering the direction Mriia came from, he relies on his sense of smell to follow the scent of humans and runs without pause. His path is cut short when a different scent reaches him, warning him that gray wolves are closing in, and he pushes himself harder, only to realize they are surrounding him. With no way out, he sets Mriia down and fights despite his exhaustion, and though she remains unconscious, the noise briefly wakes her, allowing her to see him defending her before she slips back into darkness. He defeats the wolves and carries her again, his body barely holding together as he finally reaches a human village and calls out for help, only for his voice to sound like a monster's roar to those who answer with weapons instead of aid. He tries to explain, but a blade pierces his leg, and the hostility in their eyes makes it clear that they see only a threat, not a plea for help. So he gently places Mriia down and retreats, trusting that they will care for her once he is gone. The villagers remain on guard, fearing his return, and tend to Mriia while he disappears into the distance, wounded but satisfied, knowing she will live. And as he forces himself onward, the divine voice grants him the title, Itty Bitty Hero. 2 days later, Mriia wakes inside a house in the village, where a girl named Mriia tells her that she treated her wounds using powerful white magic, and that she has been unconscious for 2 full days. Mriia urges her to continue resting, explaining that while the worst has passed, her body still needs time to recover, and Mriia lies back down, thinking that someone must have carried her to safety. Now that she knows Mriia is safe, Mriia allows her frustration to surface and complains that she has lost count of how many times she warned Dawes not to invite trouble, and Mriia immediately asks what happened to Dawes and Grants, since they were both with her when they faced the rock dragon. Mriia hesitates before answering, and tells her that Grants is dead, explaining that his body was found in the woods, crushed and bludgeoned by stone, and she places the blame squarely on Dawes, stating that no sane person would ever challenge a rock dragon. When Mriia asks about Dawes, Mriia tells her that his body has not been found, but given the circumstances, it is assumed that he was eaten. Mriia realizes that she alone survived. She breaks down and blames herself, insisting that if she had stopped Dawes, none of this would have happened. Mriia tries to comfort her, saying that it is already a miracle that even one of them has returned alive, and reminding her that Dawes never listened to anyone, no matter how often he was warned, and that his choices are not her responsibility. Still crying, Mriia insists that Dawes was not a bad person, remembering how he always drove monsters away from the village and how the children admired him for his strength and bravery. She recalls how a villager once mocked him by saying he could never defeat a rock dragon, and how Dawes reacted badly when another person accused him of running away years ago, dismissing it as something from the past, and claiming he could defeat one now if he tried. Later approaching Mriia with Grants and claiming that Mriia has given them permission to hunt the rock dragon. Mriia remembers doubting the claim and asking where Mriia is, wanting to hear it directly, only for Dawes to insist that Mriia has already left for another village, while pressuring her further by saying that even if she refuses to help, he and Grants will go anyway and might die without her. Faced with that choice, Mriia follows them, realizing now that she walks straight into a lie driven by the pride of Dawes. And as she finishes recounting this, Mriia states that his pride cost him his life, and that humans often make fatal decisions over trivial challenges. She warns Mriia not to repeat the same mistake, reminding her that pride can kill just as surely as monsters, and Mriia quietly agrees, wiping away her tears. Mriia finally smiles and tells her that surviving and reaching the village with such severe wounds is impressive, and this makes Mriia suddenly sit up and ask if someone carried her back from the forest. Mriia explains that Mriia is found unconscious just outside the village after being attacked by a monster, and that the villagers drive it away before bringing her inside. Mriia insists that this cannot be right, explaining that she loses consciousness in the forest after the rock dragon attacks and could not have made it to the village on her own. But Mriia shakes her head and says that no one from the village would wander deep into the forest alone at night. Mriia struggles to remember what happened after losing consciousness, and Mriia suggests that the shock may have affected her memory. Mriia considers the explanation, yet one image remains clear in her mind, the sight of a baby dragon fighting a pack of gray wolves, which prompts her to ask what the monster near her looked like. Mriia admits that she never saw it clearly, because it had already fled by the time she arrived, and Mriia chooses not to press further, though she quietly wonders if the dragon she remembers is the same one she met before. Several days later, the baby dragon wakes alone in the forest and finds that all his wounds have healed, and although he already knows that rest restores his body, the speed of his recovery still surprises him. He thinks of Mriia and hopes she is safe, recalling how powerless he felt when he saved her, and that makes him realize that even after evolving, his strength is still not enough, and he must grow stronger as quickly as possible. Immediately, he begins hunting dark worms by tying one to a tree and using its call ally's ability to lure the others in, then crushing them in moments once they gather, The divine voice grants him the title wrongdoer, which he finds excessive, though he accepts it but decides not to rely on this method again. He keeps fighting without stopping, and eventually reaches level 25, and the divine voice announces that he has fulfilled the requirements for evolution. He chooses to view the evolution tree and is shown 5 possible paths: mini dragon, mini angel dragon, kid marble dragon, and young plague dragon, with the last immediately standing out as unsettling. Confused by the differences between the options, he asks for explanations, and the divine voice begins with the mini dragon, describing it as a small dragon that grows slowly and has limited evolution paths, though its later stages hold strong potential. Unwilling to choose a path with slow development, he asks about the next option and learns that the mini angel dragon has the protective spirit and specializes in white magic, but lacks strong combat ability. He doesn't like that either, so the divine voice then explains the kid dragon. It is the natural next stage after baby dragon and offers a steady and balanced increase in physical strength. The kid marble dragon is a mutated form of kid dragon with distinctive polka-dotted skin and stronger magic than a normal dragon. This catches his interest, but before he can decide, the divine voice explains the young plague dragon, calling it the first stage of a dragon that spreads disaster, though it has not fully strayed from the righteous path. He immediately rejects the idea, unwilling to choose a form tied to destruction. But the divine voice mentions that it is highly intelligent and can transform into a human. This makes him reconsider, as that power would allow him to enter human villages and escape his solitude, even though the cost of becoming a plague dragon deeply unsettles him. So, the baby dragon finds himself struck and cannot decide, knowing that one wrong decision can ruin everything. He knows that becoming the plague dragon is a terrible path in every way, yet he worries deeply about Mriia, and he still wishes to gain the human transformation skill. So, with all this pulling at him, he finally makes his choice and tells the divine voice that he will evolve into the plague dragon. The divine voice accepts his choice and begins the transformation at once. And when it ends, he looks into the water, and only then does he realize how much uglier he has become. The divine voice then announces the skills he has gained, and at first he feels great joy, but that joy does not last long, for he soon notices the many evil skills he has also received. What hurts him most is that he had chosen this path to gain the human transformation skill, yet when he looks at his status board, that skill is not there. In his frustration, he asks the divine voice if he must grow stronger before he can gain it. But the divine voice gives him no true answer and only says that such matters cannot be explained to one who is only level 3. This reply leaves him even more confused and annoyed. The system then explains the rest of his skills in detail, and with each new skill he hears, his shock deepens. Many of them speak of poison, sickness, and the spreading of ruin, and with every word, his spirit sinks as he comes to understand how cruel and dangerous this form of the dragon truly is. In the end, regret fills his heart, and he longs to return to being the small and gentle dragon he once was, instead of living on as this dreadful creature of plague. Meanwhile, Mriia goes with Mriia to re-enchant the warding stones. Mriia remains confused and unsure whether the monster that saved her was real or only her imagination. But Mriia takes the matter seriously. She reasons that if a monster could enter through the broken warding stones, then their defenses have a grave flaw. Soon after she finishes re-enchanting the stones, Mriia asks Mriia to tell her more about monsters. Mriia notices that Mriia has become strangely fixated on them since the incident, and Mriia admits she cannot stop thinking about the creature from that day, for she feels in her heart that it tried to save her. That thought does not leave her, and she wishes to understand monsters better because of it. Mriia decides that telling her what she knows will do no harm, and so she begins to explain. She tells Mriia that monsters grow stronger with each evolution, and that they usually hunt other creatures to gain levels. She explains that humans also gain levels in their own way, people grow stronger with experience, but monsters follow a harsher path. When a monster reaches its limit, it does not stop growing, but instead evolves into a higher rank. After that, it hunts again, grows stronger, reaches another limit, and evolves once more into an even more powerful form. With every evolution, monsters become stronger, more dangerous, and harder to defeat. Mriia feels shocked, for she cannot believe that people have learned so much about creatures so unlike themselves. It seems impossible to her that humans could ever understand monsters. But Mriia tells her that this is not the whole truth. From time to time, rare people people can hear the divine voice, which shares with them knowledge of monsters, their levels, abilities, and even their origins. Those who bear this gift are called heroes or saints, and through them, humans have gained much of what they know about monsters. Mriia then grows serious and warns Mriia that every monster is driven to grow stronger and more fierce, for that is their nature. Even if a monster once saved her life, the next time they meet, that same creature may have evolved into something far more dangerous. In such a state, it would likely attack her rather than help her. She tells Mriia not to hold false hope about monsters, for they are beings of battle and instinct, born to grow through conflict, and monsters and humans were never meant to live in peace. After saying this, Mriia turns and walks away, leaving Mriia alone with many heavy thoughts. Meanwhile, the dragon remains set on growing stronger, so that he may one day gain human transformation and see Mriia again. He moves on in search of weak monsters, hoping to gain levels quickly and draw closer to that goal. After a short while, he finds himself caught in a great web, with a giant spider monster landing behind him with a heavy thud. He quickly checks the spider's strength and sees that it far surpasses his own at his current level, and in that moment, he understands that he cannot defeat it as he is now. The spider strikes first, and he answers with his flame breath attack. The blast deals heavy damage, yet when he checks the spider's status, he sees that its health has barely fallen. Knowing that strength alone will not be enough, he tries another path and releases a wave of paralysis attack, sending many strikes at once in the hope of slowing it down. Even after all this, the spider still holds more than half its strength, and he understands that brute force will not win this battle. Realizing how little his attacks matter against the spider, he knows that his best chance is to flee while he still can, and so he turns and runs. Before he can gain any ground, the spider follows close behind, moving far faster than he expects. He tries to use his flight skill to escape, but his level is still too low to lift him properly, and he can only roll and dodge. He keeps rolling and weaving until he spots a nearby cliff. Though he knows his flying skill is weak, he takes the risk and spreads his wings at the last moment, and by doing so, reaches the other side. He feels relief that he has escaped the spider without harm. Yet his relief fades at once, for he sees the spider spinning its web into a bridge across the gap and moving toward him once more. He freezes for a breath, and then he rolls away as fast as he can. While he flees, he keeps crossing paths with other monsters, and each time he defeats them without much trouble. He keeps moving and fighting, and with each battle, his strength grows. After a short while, the divine voice tells him that he has risen from level 3 to level 8. Hearing this, he hopes he now has a chance against the spider if he fights with care. But just as he prepares to turn back, the spider releases a poison gas. He jumps up a tree to escape the spreading mist. He remembers that he is resistant to poison. Seeing his chance, he lets himself fall, and when the spider comes near him to claim its meal, he strikes in mid-air with his flame breath and smashes the spider into the ground. And at last, the spider falls. The victor raises his level from 8 to 14. Yet even with this great boost in strength, the skill he longs for does not appear, and he begins to wonder if something else is blocking him from gaining human form. On his way back, he spots a nearby cave that looks inviting, and when he sees that no one lives inside, he decides to claim it as his own. Later, he prepares his meal in the cave, and after eating, rests and wonders if he will ever live in peace beside humans. But he soon realizes this hope is faint, for his current form as the dragon is too frightening to behold. What troubles him more is that he still has not acquired the human transformation skill, and this makes him quietly regret his decision to choose this plague dragon path in the first place. Meanwhile, in a small diner in the village, Mriia is shocked when an old man claims that he saw Daz earlier that day. The old man says he was fishing near the forest when he saw Daz walking deeper into the woods until he vanished from sight. The dragon truly is, and he longs to return to being the small and gentle dragon he once was, instead of living on as this dreadful creature of plague. Meanwhile, Mriia goes with Mriia to re-enchant the warding stones. Mriia remains confused and unsure whether the monster that saved her was real or only her imagination. But Mriia takes the matter seriously. She reasons that if a monster could enter through the broken warding stones, then there their defenses have a grave flaw. Soon after she finishes re-enchanting the stones, Mriia asks Mriia to tell her more about monsters. Mriia notices that Mriia has become strangely fixated on them since the incident, and Mriia admits she feels in her heart that it tried to save her, and she wishes to understand monsters better because of it. Mriia decides that telling her what she knows will do no harm, and so she begins to explain. She tells Mriia that monsters grow stronger with each evolution, and that they usually hunt other creatures to gain levels. She explains that humans also gain levels in their own way, people grow stronger with experience, but monsters follow a harsher path. When a monster reaches its limit, it does not stop growing, but instead evolves into a higher rank. After that, it hunts again, grows stronger, reaches another limit, and evolves once more into an even more powerful form. With every evolution, monsters become stronger, more dangerous, and harder to defeat. Mriia feels shocked, for she cannot believe that people have learned so much about creatures so unlike themselves. It seems impossible to her that humans could ever understand monsters. But Mriia tells her that this is not the whole truth. From time to time, rare people can hear the divine voice, which shares with them knowledge of monsters, their levels, abilities, and even their origins. Those who bear this gift are called heroes or saints, and through them, humans have gained much of what they know about monsters. Mriia then grows serious and warns Mriia that every monster is driven to grow stronger and more fierce, for that is their nature. Even if a monster once saved her life, the next time they meet, that same creature may have evolved into something far more dangerous. In such a state, it would likely attack her rather than help her. She tells Mriia not to hold false hope about monsters, for they are beings of battle and instinct, born to grow through conflict, and monsters and humans were never meant to live in peace. After saying this, Mriia turns and walks away. Meanwhile, the dragon remains set on growing stronger, so that he may one day gain human transformation and see Mriia again. He moves on in search of weak monsters. After a short while, he finds himself caught in a great web, with a giant spider monster landing behind him. He quickly checks the spider's strength, and in that moment, he understands that he cannot defeat it. The spider strikes first, and he answers with his flame breath. Yet when he checks the spider's status, he sees that its health has barely fallen. Knowing that strength alone will not be enough, and releases a wave of paralysis attack, sending many strikes at once. Even after all this, the spider still holds more than half its strength, and he understands that brute force will not win this battle. He knows that his best chance is to flee while he still can, and so he turns and runs. The spider follows close behind, moving far faster than he expects. He tries to use his flight skill to escape, but his level is still too low to lift him properly. He keeps rolling and weaving until he spots a nearby cliff. Though he knows his flying skill is weak, he takes the risk and spreads his wings at the last moment, and by doing so, reaches the other side. He feels relief that he has escaped the spider without harm. Yet his relief fades at once, for he sees the spider spinning its web into a bridge across the gap and moving toward him once more. He freezes for a breath, and then he rolls away as fast as he can. While he flees, he keeps crossing paths with other monsters, and each time he defeats them without much trouble. He keeps moving and fighting, and with each battle, his strength grows. After a short while, the divine voice tells him that he has risen from level 3 to level 8. Hearing this, he hopes he now has a chance against the spider if he fights with care. But just as he prepares to turn back, the spider releases a poison gas. He jumps up a tree to escape the spreading mist. He remembers that he is resistant to poison. Seeing his chance, he lets himself fall, and when the spider comes near him to claim its meal, he strikes in mid-air with his flame breath and smashes the spider into the ground. And at last, the spider falls. The victor raises his level from 8 to 14. Yet even with this great boost in strength, the skill he longs for does not appear, and he begins to wonder if something else is blocking him from gaining human form. On his way back, he spots a nearby cave that looks inviting, and when he sees that no one lives inside, he decides to claim it as his own. Later, he prepares his meal in the cave, and after eating, rests and wonders if he will ever live in peace beside humans. But he soon realizes this hope is faint, for his current form as the dragon is too frightening to behold. What troubles him more is that he still has not acquired the human transformation skill, and this makes him quietly regret his decision to choose this plague dragon path in the first place. Meanwhile, in a small diner in the village, Mriia is shocked when an old man claims that he saw Dawes earlier that day. The old man says he was fishing near the forest when he saw Daz walking deeper into the woods until he vanished from sight. Mriia rushes to tell Mriia what she has heard and asks for leave to search the forest. Mriia refuses at once, saying there is no way Daz could still be alive, for if he were, he would have returned to the village by now. Seeing how deeply this troubles Mriia, Mriia softens her tone and promises that the guild will look into the matter and see what can be done, and this gives Mriia a small measure of comfort. The next day, the dragon wakes up with renewed strength and a firm will to gain the human transformation skill. He leaves his cave and notices a strange slime on the ground. But just when he tries to view its status, he feels a sharp pain stabbing through his eyes. Yet at the very moment his status skill rises to level 4. With this new level, he can at last see a faint image of the slime's status screen.
The dragon manages to escape into the forest, where he realizes he misread the slime's stats earlier. Even so, the creature still feels too creepy, so he decides to leave it alone for now and search for prey in another direction. While moving through some bushes, he notices what looks like a pot and thinks it might be useful for storing fruit. However, when he touches it to take it, the pot suddenly jumps into the air. He quickly realizes it is not an object, but a monster called Patortis. After checking its stats and seeing that they are nothing special, he attacks it with a flame punch. But the attack barely harms it. He continues bombarding the monster with attacks, yet the Patortis doesn't even flinch and calmly recovers its HP. Realizing that brute force will not work, the dragon changes tactics and throws the monster into a nearby river. The Patortis sinks and dies. The dragon gains experience and levels up, but also receives the Wicked King title. This makes him uneasy, as he thinks he is already drifting down a villainous path. Soon after, several Patortises suddenly surround him. He realizes that the first one must have used a cry skill to summon them. The Patortises gather and stack themselves into a strange tower formation. The dragon flies into the air, grabs the monster at the top of the tower, and drops it onto the stacked monsters below. The impact knocks down the entire tower and defeats all of them at once. In return, he learns a skill called Meteorite and gains 600 experience points, which raises him to level 30. Several of his other skills also level up. Unfortunately, each of their shells breaks after the battle, leaving him with no usable pots. Soon, he notices the sky turning purple and hears strange footsteps nearby. Curious, he follows the sound and discovers a bear calmly wandering through the area. He asks the system for information, but since he is too far away to view its full stats, it only identifies the creature as a D+ rank monster called Claybear. The dragon realizes the monster is of the same rank as he is and wonders whether he could defeat it in a fair fight. However, the main reason he wants to fight it is that its clay body could provide valuable material for making pots and other useful items. Seeing this as a rare opportunity, he decides not to let it escape and begins chasing the Claybear, which still seems unaware of his presence. He attempts a sneak attack, but the Claybear turns out and suddenly sprouts spikes from its chest. The dragon barely avoids being impaled and jumps back, complaining that something like that shouldn't be called a bear. The Claybear tries to body slam the dragon, but he dodges and damages it with a rolling attack. However, the Claybear heals itself completely, forcing the dragon to switch to hit-and-run tactics until its mana runs low. Just as he moves in to finish the fight, the Claybear grows spikes on its back, making his rolling attack unsafe. Realizing the Claybear has already spent a large amount of mana, the dragon decides to wear it down further, but before he could make a move, the monster suddenly tears off its own arm and throws it at him. The dragon dodges and notices that the arm has turned into normal clay after separating from the body. The Claybear then starts throwing spikes that also turn into clay once they detach from its body. Seeing this, the dragon comes up with an idea. He rushes at the Claybear, tears off one of its arms with his claws, and quickly rolls the clay into a ball, then uses Meteorite, applying his full body weight to crush and kill it. He gains 300 experience points, reaches level 33, and learns the skill Nutcracker. Exhausted but satisfied, the dragon gathers the clay from the Claybear's body and uses it to make pots and jars. He also builds a furnace to bake them, and while the pots are cooking, he goes out to find dinner. While searching for vegetables and mushrooms, he finds a thunder mushroom, which is nutritious and tasty, but contains a mild paralyzing poison. Since he does not yet have resistance to paralysis, he throws it away and thanks the system for such detailed information. Later, he encounters a giant flower that suddenly attacks when he tries to appraise it. The dragon quickly tears it out by the stem and kills it. The system explains it is a carnivorous plant that cannot digest salt and stores it in its roots. Realizing that salt will improve his cooking, the dragon takes the salt-filled bowl back with him. Meanwhile, Mriia disobeys Mriia and leaves the safety of the village barrier to search for Doze. She is willing to face any danger if it means finding him and bringing him back safely. Feeling guilty about what happened to Doze and Grants, she continues into the forest. Just then, a worm-like monster suddenly attacks her, but she quickly defeats it with Fireball and reminds herself to stay calm. At the same time, the dragon continues searching for food. He finds a large monster mushroom that can walk and attack people once it matures, and since it tastes good, he adds it to his list of ingredients. Soon after, he discovers another strange mushroom and asks the system about it. It explains that the mushroom is an A rank and valuable enough to support an entire nation's economy if cultivated. The dragon briefly dreams of getting rich, but when the system reveals that it is also a highly addictive drug, he burns the mushrooms to prevent anyone from becoming addicted, which causes his itty-bitty hero title to level up. Later, he finds pepperberries, which the system says were once the most sought-after spice and worth their weight in gold, so the dragon harvests as many as he can. Meanwhile, Mriia moves deeper into the forest while hiding from monsters, but soon realizes she has entered a dangerous area where she might face something far stronger than herself. Deciding it is too risky, she turns back toward the village outskirts. That night, the dragon lights his cave with a light mushroom and checks the pots he baked in his furnace. They turn out well, so he uses them to cook a stew with the ingredients he gathered. The salt and mushrooms greatly enhance the flavor, and although he knows little about cooking, he begins speaking like a food critic about the dish's umami. He even makes chopsticks to eat with despite his claws. Because he has used salt properly, his chef title rises from level 1 to level 2. While eating, he notices the bowl he made is poorly designed and spills stew, so he decides to improve his pottery skills and make better bowls and utensils. The next day, a carriage arrives at the village near the forest, and two beautiful adventurers step out to investigate the forest. Although they doubt they will actually find a survivor there, the guild assign them the task, so they decide they must complete the mission. In the forest, the dragon continues improving his cave and begins furnishing it with clay furniture. He hunts wolves and brings their bodies back to process them. He plans to dry the fur later, but first he seasons the meat and hangs it to dry as jerky so he can store food for the colder seasons. Satisfied with his progress, he feels he is slowly getting used to life in this new world. However, when he goes outside to collect the jerky, he finds monkeys eating it. Angry, he chases them away and realizes he needs a permanent solution, or he will lose all his stored meat. He decides to create a strong poison and coat the jerky with it to kill any monkeys that try to steal it. While searching the forest for dangerous ingredients, he notices he can now recognize poisonous mushrooms and plants at a glance, without consulting the system. Later, the dragon reaches a flower field and decides to pick some flowers to decorate his cave, thinking everyone should have something beautiful to look at. Just then, a cute monster suddenly appears. Surprised, he asks the system about it, and it identifies the mongoose-like creature as the Poison Princess, a monster with poison abilities. The dragon feels uneasy, but the creature seems frightened and runs away. Moments later, a piece of clay falls nearby and distracts him. Using that chance, the Poison Princess suddenly returns, bites him, and escapes. He does not even understand how he got attacked. The poison soon takes effect, and he grows extremely weak, and his shoulder, where he was bitten, freezes. Just then, the system informs him that his poison resistance skill has leveled up. The dragon realizes he has been inflicted with a special poison. When he asks the system what makes it different from normal poison, he receives the usual response that the information is too high level for him. He tries to get up and leave, but when he moves, the poison overwhelms him. Feeling weaker, he realizes his condition is getting worse, and wonders if there might be any plants nearby that could cure poison, but he cannot remember seeing any. Then he gets an idea and asks the system for more information about the monster that poisoned him. The system explains that the Poison Princess is a cunning creature that poisons its prey and then runs away, waiting for the victim to die before returning to eat the body. Hearing this, the dragon thinks the monster is even worse than he is. The system also reveals that the monster's poison comes from the poisonous plants and insects it consumes, but its body fluids act as an antidote, protecting it from its own poison. The creature is intelligent and often uses the antidote to bargain for its life if it is captured. The dragon concludes that he must capture the poison princess to obtain the antidote, but since he has no guaranteed way to catch it, he decides to take a risk and run away, knowing the monster will not let its poisoned prey escape and will follow him. While he runs with what little strength he has left, he stays alert and soon spots the poisonous creature leaping from tree to tree while chasing him. He begins rolling after it, but the monster keeps its distance. The dragon realizes they are heading straight toward a cliff, where he might be able to corner it, but then the dragon suddenly crashes into something and stops. He deduces that the poison princess shot a clay bullet at him while rolling, which briefly impresses him. Ignoring the hits from clay shards, he continues the chase, and his rolling skill levels up, allowing him to catch up. He slams into the monster and knocks her into the air, planning to catch her. However, he fails to notice his surroundings, and the impact sends the poison princess falling off a cliff. Panicking at the thought of losing the antidote, the dragon dives after her. The poison in his body grows worse, but despite the intense pain, he grabs the frightened monster and uses fire breath to fly back up to the surface. The moment he lands, the poison reaches its final stage, and he feels like dying. Even so, he is relieved that he managed to save the poison princess. Soon after, he loses consciousness, leaving the monster beside him. Meanwhile, Mriia returns to the village, and it's already evening. Mriia asks where she has been, because she could not find her all day. Mriia lies, saying she was feeling unwell and only went for a walk. When Mriia asks if she went into the forest to search for does, Mriia lies again, and insists that she never entered the forest. Mriia believes her lie, and tells her not to worry too much because the guild's adventurers will arrive soon. Back in the forest, the dragon suddenly regains consciousness. It takes him a moment to remember that he had been poisoned and was waiting to die. When he sees the poison princess nearby, he becomes angry, thinking she stayed to watch him die. But when he tries to attack her, he realizes that his body no longer feels weak or painful. He then understands that the poison princess must have given him the antidote, which she proudly confirms. With no reason to doubt her, the dragon happily picks up the little creature and says that after fighting and saving each other's lives, they now share an unbreakable bond. Poison Princess hugs him playfully, and he decides to adopt her as his friend. He brings her to his cave and cooks food for both of them, and the Poison Princess enjoys eating the cooked, seasoned meat. The dragon wonders what to name her, but then decides that monsters like them do not need names. Poison Princess snuggles up to him, and he realizes she has grown attached to him. He tells her she can stay with him as long as she wants, because she is his first friend, which makes her very happy. Later, Poison Princess notices a pot giving off a foul smell. The dragon explains that it contains a special poison he is preparing. As soon as she hears this, Poison Princess jumps onto the pot and starts drinking the poison. The dragon worries about her, but then remembers that she can strengthen her own poison by consuming poisonous substances. Curious, he tastes a tiny bit of the poison himself, which makes him flail around like a fish out of water, though it also causes his poison resistance skill to level up. He wonders how Poison Princess can drink it like it is delicious, but she simply gives him a confused look. The next day, the dragon takes Poison Princess with him to hunt gray wolves. He taunts the wolves, and, when they charge, Poison Princess knocks them out with clay shards, allowing the dragon to finish them off. They celebrate their teamwork with a high five. Later, Poison Princess helps him gather coconuts, and they enjoy the sunset together before returning to the cave. While sleeping, the dragon notices Poison Princess resting very close to his face, and remembers that, despite her cute and friendly behavior, she was once the most dangerous enemy he had faced. He jokingly asks her not to bite him in her sleep, and feels they will likely stay together for a long time. The following day, he takes Poison Princess to the place where pepper berries grow and lets her taste them, but she clearly dislikes the spicy flavor. She then jumps down and leads him somewhere else she prefers. Forgetting that she likes poisonous things, the dragon follows her until they reach a giant, foul-smelling mushroom. Staying far away, he asks the system, which identifies it as a highly poisonous bee mushroom. Realizing Poison Princess wants to eat it, but not wanting the terrible smell in their cave, the dragon burns the mushroom. Poison Princess is devastated and angrily hits him for destroying what she considered a delicious meal. He promises to find her another poisonous plant later. Later, Poison Princess suddenly points a shard of clay at him. The dragon wonders if she is angry, but instead, she fires it into the bushes behind him, and a horrifying two-headed hound suddenly emerges. The dragon checks its status and sees that it has high stats and dangerous skills. He considers running away, but since the creature can mark and track its target, he decides they must fight instead. Poison Princess rolls away, while the dragon keeps the monster's attention. Their plan is for him to distract it from the front, while Poison Princess finishes it with poison. The dragon charges forward and punches one of the hound's heads, but the other head moves to defend it and pushes him back. The two-headed hound then uses gravity magic on the dragon, forcing him to the ground under heavy weight so he can barely move. But just as the monster approaches, Poison Princess distracts it by firing clay shards, giving the dragon a chance to use fire breath, but the creature quickly heals itself. The dragon then realizes the monster's two heads have different roles. The weeping head uses magic, while the angry head handles physical attacks. Just then, the hound prepares another gravity spell, and in response, the dragon rushes forward and deliberately lets the angry head bite him, creating an opening for Poison Princess to poison the weeping head. They retreat and watch the monster's health drop despite its healing magic. The dragon thinks they have won. However, the angry head suddenly bites off the poisoned weeping head to stop the poison from spreading. The dragon realizes the monster has a skill called Sacrifice. Using it, the severed head leaps forward to attack the Poison Princess. She narrowly dodges and runs while the head chases her. Meanwhile, the dragon cannot help her because the monster's main body blocks its path. He rushes forward, punches the hound, grabs it by the neck, and throws it into the air. Jumping after it, he uses Nutcracker to crush its angry head, finally killing the creature. Once done, the dragon worries about Poison Princess and immediately searches for her, afraid of losing his only friend. He soon finds a pool of blood, which terrifies him. He calls out for her and finally sees Poison Princess crawl out of the bushes, badly injured and weak. His heart sinks at the sight. Just then, the severed weeping head suddenly attacks her again, but this time the dragon protects her, kicking the head away and smashing it into pieces. He then gently holds Poison Princess in his arms, relieved that she is still alive, and begins to cry, realizing he might have lost everything if she had died. Poison Princess weakly licks his tears to comfort him. At that moment, the system announces that he gained experience from defeating the monster and leveled up. But the dragon angrily tells it to be quiet, because nothing matters more to him than Poison Princess. He even says he no longer cares about gaining the human transformation skill, as long as she is by his side. Ironically, the system then announces that he has finally obtained the human transformation skill, leaving him stunned. Meanwhile, in the village, Mriia helps Mriia with chores as they prepare for the guild adventurers who are arriving that day. While waiting, Mriia notices an old monster encyclopedia, and Mriia tells her she might find it interesting. Mriia reads, and Mriia explains the monster ranking system. F-rank monsters like the Dark Worm are weak and can be defeated by beginner adventurers, while D-rank monsters require experienced adventurers. The two-headed hound is a D+ rank creature. Monsters ranked B or higher are so powerful that only heroes or saints can defeat them. Mriia also explains that the rock dragon Mriia's party once tried to hunt was a C-rank monster, though she believes it may have become even stronger after evolving. Mriia becomes frightened after hearing this, and just then, the two adventurers arrive to begin their investigation.
The adventurers introduce themselves as Meltia and Yuno and add that they're here to find some missing dude. Mriia explains they're looking for Dawes, one of Mriia's buddies. She's super worried because Mriia keeps going into the dangerous forest alone to find him, so finding proof of his death might finally get her to stop. Meltia and Yuno take the quest, grab their gear, and head into the woods to start searching. While all that serious stuff is happening, Dragon is having a moment of pure hype. He's finally unlocked the ability to transform into a human. After spending so much time as a lizard, the idea of walking on two legs and talking without sounding like a dying cat is super appealing. He finds a quiet spot where nobody can see him, like a creep hiding in the bushes, and gets ready to test it out. He starts daydreaming about his future. On one hand, he wants to stick with the Venom Princess because she's basically his only friend. On the other hand, he misses the simple human life living in a village. He figures if he can swap back and forth every few days, he activates the skill and imagines himself looking like a normal guy again. Instead of getting his old body back, the result is a complete disaster. He turns into this twisted, grotesque mess that looks even more cursed than his dragon form. He's furious, demanding answers from the divine voice, but the cosmic DJ just tells tells him to level up more. Realizing the form is trash and makes him a total weakling, he gives up and reverts to his lizard body. Meanwhile, Mriia and Yuno are still wandering around looking for Daz. There's no sign of the guy. As the sun starts setting, they're about to call it quits and head back when they stumble upon a weird cave hidden in the trees. There are 2 small dragon statues at the entrance. Yuno thinks it's just people who worship dragons, but Mriia senses magic coming from them, so they decide to check it out. Inside, the cave is surprisingly clean and cozy, definitely not the home of a wild beast. They assume it's a hideout for thieves or smugglers. Then the Venom Princess pops up. She doesn't attack them, just gives a warning and walks deeper in. Mriia recognizes her as a monster that can kill you with 1 bite, and tells Yuno to bounce immediately. Outside, Dragon notices the humans entering his turf and gets curious. He hasn't talked to humans in forever, so he gets excited and decides to try the transformation again, completely ignoring how it failed earlier. When Mriia and Yuno see him, they mistake him for a monster and attack on sight. Dragon is caught off guard, and the 2 adventurers peace out before he can even say wait. Once they're far enough away, they debate whether to head back to the village. Mriia decides against it because they have no proof of Daz's death and can't really explain the weird stuff they saw. They agree the forest is too dangerous for just 2 people and decide to regroup with the rest of their team. The next day, Dragon wakes up feeling fresh. With the failed transformation still haunting him, he focuses on a more annoying problem. Monkeys keep stealing his food. No matter how many times he chases them, they always come back for his dried meat. So he gets a brilliant idea. He asks the Venom Princess to whip up a poison with no smell or taste, coats some jerky with it, and leaves it out for the monkeys. Poor fellows fall for the trap and start chowing down. The poison weakens them, and Dragon swoops in to attack. But these monkeys are tougher than they look, and even while poisoned, a few of them manage to surround him. He and the Venom Princess work together to push them back. Just when things seem under control, one of the monkeys lets out a loud scream. Suddenly, heavy footsteps shake the ground. A massive alpha shows up, towering over the others and taking charge immediately. Dragon checks the alpha's stats and realizes they're actually pretty close in power. The problem is, Alpha has a skill that boosts the abilities of all the other monkeys. Once that activates, the whole squad gets faster and stronger, forcing Dragon and the Venom Princess on the defensive. The Divine Voice explains that Alpha isn't a gorilla, but an evolved orangutan, a D+ rank monster. It's smart, strong, and a great leader, making the fight way more dangerous. Dragon notices Alpha can communicate telepathically, so he tries to negotiate. He explains they're just defending their territory and don't want a pointless fight. Alpha isn't having it, saying the clan must eliminate them because they're too dangerous. Negotiation fails, so Dragon proposes a one-on-one duel. Alpha accepts, because tradition or whatever. The other monkeys step back and agree not to interfere, turning the chaotic brawl into a solo match between the 2 heavyweights. At first, Dragon plays it smart. He keeps retreating, baiting Alpha into swinging wildly, and countering whenever an opening appears. His strategy works, and he lands some solid hits. But then, Alpha dumps all his stat points into agility. Dragon suddenly can't keep track of him, so he does the same, putting everything into speed. The fight turns into a brutal exchange of punches. Both are landing huge blows, neither willing to back down. Dragon realizes he's reaching his limit, so he decides to finish it with one final attack. When Alpha throws a massive punch, Dragon activates his Dragon Counter Punch, redirecting the force and landing a devastating hit square on Alpha's face. Alpha staggers. Dragon knows he's won, but Alpha manages to throw one last haymaker before collapsing. The punch sends Dragon crashing to the ground too. Since Dragon's attack landed first, he's declared the winner. While he loses consciousness, he sees the Venom Princess standing protectively nearby.